Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Christina from Our Wood Home. I apologize once again for this terrible lighting. I'm in my basement with my preserves and the only light is 3 small, very old ceiling mounted lights. They're just not very great, they're very harsh, but we're working with what we have here, so this is what you get. I'm in my basement again to show you everything that I preserved for the month of September. I know the video is kind of late since we're already in the middle of October, but I've been really busy. I've been getting over being sick, so that's why I'm just getting to this video now. But I've got a bunch of things that I preserved in September and I'm excited to tell you about them. Recently I rearranged my entire preserves shelf system to have everything based on when it was preserved. I'd pretty much been doing that already, but things kind of got mixed around throughout the months. So on the very top shelf, which you can't see, is all my July and June strawberry things. And then I've got my August shelf just at a frame here with all my peaches. And I have some more August things down here. I'll link the videos where I talk about my July and August preserves at the end of this one, so you can check those out if you haven't already. I do have some overlap on my shelves because I was trying to keep things not only together based on when they were canned, but what they are. So on my September shelves, I do have some August tomatoes mixed in, and I've got corn up here, but also corn down here because this is August and this is September. Let me try to figure out, making some sense of my lists here. Okay, so for September, let's see, I know I've got some jars of tomatoes back here. 1, 2. I have only 2 jars of tomatoes in the 1 liter size. My tomatoes didn't do as well as I had hoped, and we actually had some pretty major frosts towards the end of September. I was able to cover the plants, well, my husband was able to help me cover the plants, so they were okay from the frost, but on the day that I got very sick with the virus that shall not be named, we had a major frost and the plants didn't get covered, so they all died, and I ended up harvesting about 10 pounds of green tomatoes. I did preserve those, but I'll talk about that in my October video. So I only got a few jars of tomatoes for September, but I do have some from October as well. Like I said, I'm pretty disappointed, but it's okay. Now I know what to do differently next year. I did some more beans. 2 jars of these garden beans. I can't remember if I called them garden beans or mystery beans in the last video, but I call them mystery beans because I just don't know what they're called. The seeds were given to me by a friend and I just never asked what the variety is, so I just call them mystery beans or garden beans because mystery bean doesn't seem like a very nice label for something in a pantry. I also did 2 more jars of corn. These are just 500 ml size. The corn and the beans were pressure canned, but the tomatoes were just canned using my steam canner. Alright, moving on to this bottom shelf, which I think is in frame. I did, I did 3 1-liter jars of vegetable stock. I was not planning to do vegetable stock, but I had a lot of scraps, so I figured I may as well try it and see how it turns out. So I'll use this throughout the winter for making rice, or if I want it as a base for soup or stew. It looks really good. It's kind of cloudy on the bottom, but I didn't use a very fine filter when I was straining the broth. I just used a colander, but I'm sure if I used cheesecloth it would have gotten out all of that sediment, but I don't mind. Next up is 2 jars of apple pie filling. I'm so excited about this. Our apple tree produced pretty well this year for the first time ever, so we had a bunch of apples for snacking and baking, and one of the ways I preserved them was with apple pie filling. So this recipe is from Melissa K. Norris. Her channel here on YouTube is great. Her blog is great, her podcast is great. I will link the recipe for this apple pie filling because I'm sure I'm going to get questions about it. I don't use the Sure Gel ingredient because I have never seen it, I don't want to special order it, so I just omitted that from the recipe. And then when I'm ready to make a pie with this, all I'm going to do is dump out the liquid and save that, mix it with some flour or cornstarch, and then add that into the apples in the crust so it gets nice and thick. I have some small jars of spiced apple juice, 2 jars to be exact. If that sounds familiar, it's because I have the recipe for that here on my channel. You can check that out at the, where will I put that? I'll put that link in the cards above at the top of the video around this time. In my video about the spiced apple juice, I didn't go through the canning instructions, but I ended up canning it to have it for later. So 2 jars of that. And the last thing I canned in September is, let me check my list here, 9 jars of chili. I'm so excited about this chili. I was excited about the apple pie filling, but I'm very excited about this chili. So I've got 9 500 ml jars, and it's a beef chili. So I'm kind of impressed that I managed to pressure can beef, and it looks pretty good. It smelled amazing when I was cooking it, and I can't wait to open these up and eat them throughout the winter. This recipe for the chili is from healthycanning.com. If you just search for that in your internet browser of choice, I'm sure you'll find it. I don't tend to follow recipes for chili, but I followed this one and just made a few slight tweaks. It turned out amazingly well. The only problem I had was some of the grease from the beef was siphoning out, which sounds disgusting, but it left the jars a little bit greasy. So once they were all finished processing, once they were cooled, I just wiped them down with hot soapy water on a rag and dried them before putting the labels on. Oh, I forgot there's something else I pressure canned. I mean, water bath canned. I did 6 500 ml jars of tomato soup. So I did end up getting more tomatoes than I thought, but I chose to make them into soup. So this is my recipe that I've had since high school, and that recipe calls for thickening the soup with butter and flour as well as heavy cream, but those ingredients are not safe for pressure canning, so I didn't put any of them in here. This is basically just a very runny tomato base, and what I'll do before serving is make that flour and butter to thicken it up and add that into the jar or into the pot with the soup while it's heating up, and then if my husband wants, he can put some milk or cream in it at the end. I don't eat tomato soup, so this is just for him. Oh, I forgot to mention something about the chili. So the recipe I used didn't use any corn in the chili, and I love to put corn in my chili, but I didn't for this recipe. I also always do rice with my chili. It's something my mom did, it's something I do now, but rice is not safe for pressure canning either. So even though this seems like maybe just 1 serving of chili, what I'm planning to do is when I'm ready to eat it, I'm going to stretch out this 1 jar into at least 2 servings by adding in some corn and cooked rice while it's heating up. And that will definitely make it last a little longer. That is everything I have canned for the month of September. If you can see this side of this next shelf, you can kind of get a little sneak peek into what I made for October. As I said, we're already partway through October, so I'm anticipating being able to get a few more things canned while we still have nice weather, because if you didn't know, I use my pressure canner outside and it's very, very weather dependent. Anyways, that's everything I've made. That's all I wanted to show you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a great rest of your day.